Welcome to The Good Life with The Last Disciples, where we speak freely, think critically, and live authentically. Yo, Eric, hit the organ for me one time.
Oh, shucks.
Let's start that over. That was
Yeah,
good.
okay.
All right, here we go.
I'm Jaleesa.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Bobby.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Jocelyn.
And this is episode 2. Welcome to The Good Life, y'all. How y'all feel?
Good. And welcome
Feeling
to
good.
the
Episode 2.
Feeling pretty good. Excited about what we're doing.
So let's get into it. And let's start with the rundown. What's going on, y'all?
There's been a lot going on.
Yeah, there was this really interesting article that I saw and read on ESPN. So I don't know how many of you all follow basketball, NBA basketball, but there's an article on the Golden State Warriors team, the basketball team, about the coaches, about Steve Kerr and Luke Walton. And so just a little bit of background, the Golden State Warriors are the NBA champs, the reigning champs. And, they have built this great culture of leadership within these talented coaches that they have. So the story basically tells how Luke Walton was one of the coaches that Steve Kerr recruited when he first came to the Bay Area. So it was just really great for me because y'all know I'm really into leadership. And he talks about how Steve really built this culture by bringing in young talented coaches so that now when Steve Kerr, he has some illness he's dealing with. He's got like a spinal leak, I think, going on, a spinal trip thing, so that even when he's out of the organization is still running strong, And so I thought that was really cool and something to think about when it comes to just leadership and systems, that whatever, our area, whatever our focus is, like whether it's, just our jobs or community or church or wherever, that, things function really well when you can have a leader that equips and empowers people so that the system, whatever it is, doesn't depend on them totally, that other people can kind of plug in and thrive. Because the Warriors, I don't know if y'all watching, but the Warriors, they've been playing pretty well so far. So
yeah, they've been Curry's been cooking.
Man, he is unstoppable, man.
He really is a dog.
Look at the wrist.
But I think that's like just perfect leadership to where you make yourself indispensable, or you make yourself dispensable rather, to where people can, someone else, if you're out, can come in, and not necessarily a situation where you're so great that you have to be there, but rather you're building up others so that if, for instance, you're sick, if you're not there, you just need additional hands, there are capable people there that can like get the job done. And Golden State, for real, is like an example of that.
Yeah, and a little known fact is Steve Kerr played on the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, one of the championship teams, and it's one of the things that just trickles down. Steve Kerr has been around greatness for so long, and he's been put into a position to be a leader, and now he embodies that same greatness that was taught to him, how to create such a system that it doesn't matter who's in or out, you're still going to win and succeed.
Yeah, Eric, you was talking about a video you saw this past week.
Yeah, either this week or last week, I saw a video of a student being dragged by an officer in Spring Valley.
Did
anybody else see that?
I remember. I remember.
I didn't know how to feel after I saw that video. I was like, so what caused this officer to drag this little old girl like that from the desk,
Right when you said that, I was just thinking, like, working with kids, like, they're not always innocent. But as the adult, do you have to understand that they're kids?
Exactly.
They're kids, and then there's nothing a kid can do to justify you being that aggressive. Like, they can talk about your mama, they can be disrespectful, they can say crazy things, but they are a child.
Yeah.
So they're going to have impulses to say wild things, but then where's the maturity to not stoop to their level and use your size
Exactly.
to just like literally rip her out like a doll? Like that really pissed me off.
First of all, it upset me because, first of all, she was a young girl, right? And you have this big brawly officer taking it upon himself to not only assess the situation, but to just going into the classroom on 10, ready to really fight this little girl.
Right.
And at the end of the day, one thing that upset me more than anything else is all of these pundits talking about, well, she shouldn't have had her phone out, or kids are disrespectful, or this is shining a light on how kids are being disrespectful in the classroom. I come from a family of educators, and I was an educator. I understand that children can be bad. But at the end of the day, that doesn't justify my actions to beat them as if I'm beating an adult on the street. That does not justify it, especially since it's a little girl. And I'm intentionally calling her a little girl because that's who she is. But she's sitting there, not doing anything, not being irate. She's sitting there. And he comes in and just drags her. Yeah. She could have broken her back. It was just ridiculous. I'm sorry. I just was upset.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was looking at that video, like, I'm pretty sure there were plenty of times where I probably deserved that from my mom, but I didn't get that. You know, we all grew up in a black family, getting hit, you know, that might not have to be put in a podcast, but I'm just saying, when I was thinking about the video, I just remember all of the things that I did as a child. And I remember how irrational and how disrespectful I was, and yet I still never got that type of treatment as a black male
from your own mother.
Yeah,
not a random person, not random, but not an individual who has no relation to you.
Yeah,
random.
No, random because title does not make you not random. You are still a person I do not know, regardless of your title. I don't know you have business putting your hands on me in that way. Absolutely not.
Yeah. One of the things that that I've been, first of all, just my emotional reaction to the whole thing was I couldn't watch it. I watched it once and that was enough. You know, it was just horrifying. I mean, I just couldn't imagine how this girl must have felt and how traumatized she must have felt, you know, just being attacked, because that's what she was. She was attacked. So I've tried to get engaged locally around police community relations. And one of the things that I'm learning from conversations both that Cascade is having and conversations I'm going to here in our county is that there are systems put in place around police locally, and we can help to enforce them. The problem is when people slip through the cracks, or when there are not accountability set up. What happens is that you can get somebody like this who clearly either by his own personal bias, however, I just being black in America, I think race played into it somewhat. We don't know what level, but on top of his own possible personal bias, just his own psychological state to be able to attack someone like that. Clearly, as a police department, you should know and check him to be able to say, no, you are not psychologically fit to serve on our task force. So he slipped through the cracks. And I think, to me, that was one of my next steps going forward. You know, it's like, how do we handle this? Everybody's like, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. How do we, you know, protest, which is totally appropriate. And I think one of the ways that we do that we sometimes overlook is let's hold our local police forces accountable. Like we have the power as citizens to make sure that systems are in place that hold our police accountable, so that we don't have folks who definitely lack self-control, who may have psychological issues, and who may have racial biases. We can make sure that they don't get out on the streets. So I think that was my big picture reaction to it.
I like that.
I don't know what training it takes to be a police officer. I mean, I am totally ignorant to that process, but I wonder if it's a process to where they're having race relation classes of some sort, so that they can have an understanding of the system, of like the social dynamics of race in this country, or are they just being taught like what are the bad neighborhoods and this is how you come into a situation, and more the tactics of it, and not necessarily let's better understand the problems of the people that we're supposed to be serving, or people or neighborhoods to where there's a high crime. Why are they committing these crimes? Why are they hurt? What's going on with their mental wellness, their spiritual wellness? Are those classes taking place when police officers are signing up? Or is it just how to use a gun? What's protocol? When do I read them their rights? These are the things that I think is necessary. I mean, I would love for that to be kind of like a universal thing for cops just in America.
There was a police major at the forum that I had at Cascade, and what he mentioned is that training is one of the things that gets cut first when it comes to the police budgets in any place you are around the country. And so when you think about, having training around some of the social dynamics we're talking about, that's one of the things that's likely to get cut first, just because their thing,
not the weapons.
Exactly, right? That's the question to ask, right?
Not the grenades and the rocket launchers.
Right. And the SWAT gear. Y'all not SWAT, man. Right. Put that away.
Absolutely. That's the question, right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's real.
Real. I think my issue was more so like, because I keep hearing this like, that's a girl, and it's like, but if it was a boy, would it be okay? You know what I mean? Like, at what point are we holding officers accountable for their amount of force and aggression? Like, I think it's completely unprofessional. The amount of videos I've seen of officers using profanity, like why you are at work? I can't be at work cussing like that. Like, what? At what point are we going to address the level of aggression that officers are able to show without any recourse? And as long as we allow them to do that, these types of things will continue to happen. If they don't get reprimanded for using excessive force, if they don't get reprimanded for using, inappropriate language, if they don't get reprimanded for shooting without, probable cause, and really probable cause, not something that you wrote up in a dang on report,
made up, so
that you can, and made up so you can pass along and not, you know what I mean? Like, if we're not going to hold them accountable, and for where I am, my sheriff is on TV, Sheriff Clark. Y'all done seen him on CNN, and it's like, come on, man. Like, if that is our leader, what should we really expect from the officers in this city? And then that puts bad light on the people who are great at their job and who take it seriously and consider themselves to be servants of the city, and not, people who can walk around with the chip on their shoulder and with a gun. You know what I mean? Like, but that's what we see when we see officers now, because there's no repercussion for what happens, and the bad is overshadowing the good at this point.
I mean, that could raise a question: are officers about to become the new minority? I mean, that's the same thing that happened with blacks. You have so many people that do negative things that the stigma is placed on all black people. You have so many cops that's doing this type of violence and killing that the stigma is now placed on all cops. And blacks are the minority. Are cops going to become the new minority? And that's a question at large.
Yeah, I would love to have a podcast question or session or theme just around police brutality, because it is one that's huge, and the Black Lives Matter, and we definitely should get more into that. But definitely appreciate, Eric, you sending us that video. I seen it on, you sent it to us, and then I saw it on Facebook, and then it was just a lot. So, but keeping us woke.
All right, it's time for
Live Letter. DJ
day by day.
So many things I think I know, and other things I think I don't. But the only thing I know for sure is you'll never know if you don't try and see how it goes.
Live Letters is where we hear your questions. If you haven't sent us a question or idea, hit us up. We will respond. We don't bite. We want to hear from you, so send us some questions at thelastdisciples@gmail.com. That is THEE, lastdisciples@gmail.com. Or message us on Facebook at facebook.com/THEE, Last Disciples. All right, y'all. So here's our first live letter for today. Did you all see the post saying that young people should be taught to build community institutions like banks or schools instead of churches? The writer implied that black churches don't empower the community with tools for financial success. Do you agree or do you disagree?
Wow,
Mm.
that's a tough one.
That's a lot to unpack.
It's a great point. I think it gets to a point to where some people are not too happy with what the black church is doing in their community,
Yeah.
and in terms of the very tangible ways that they can impact the community. I know that you'll pray for me, but what about if I'm struggling to pay rent? What are some things that you all can do to help me and assist me in that? If I'm struggling to find, avenues that can help me further my education, I know you'll pray for me again, but what are the things that you all have for me that can aid me in that process? And I think that there's some frustration coming from that post to where a person is not too happy with how their black churches that they have experienced, because obviously not all black churches are the same, but black churches they have experienced from majority have not done that. And so, do I agree? No. What I do think is that if black churches can aim to have more of the same services that banks and schools have, then I think that will, address the problem. But I don't think that, not investing in churches is the answer.
I think with this post, growing up in the inner city in one of the more impoverished cities in the U.S.,
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, you see a lot of kind of storefront churches, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with worshiping in your community. But when there are churches popping up, but no other capacities to help us learn the things that we don't know, like gaining financial access in other arenas, or furthering our education beyond high school, and then you go to churches that don't facilitate that conversation of how you might be able to do that. And not saying that this falls on storefront churches at all. I'm just talking about my experience in my city. But you can, like you say, you can go to church and you can get prayed for, but when it comes to how to build a better credit score,
That's
or
good.
how to buy a car and not have a crazy interest rate, or how I can break into a field that is predominantly filled with people who don't look like me and who don't come from my socioeconomic background, right? Like, I believe that there's a lack of that talk in the church. And when you go to church and you're told that, hey, you can talk to anything about God. God is there for you. He understands your struggle. God wants to have conversation with you. And I use he very loosely because we understand that God is not attached to gender, right? But, when you have this lack of that conversation and you're only at church, 1 to 3 times a week, depending on how much you go, and none of those nights are about your life outside of church and living, and paying your bills, you know what I mean? Then you get this frustration of, okay,
What's the point of this?
What does this do for
Like
me
what
other than,
good is this?
yeah. And so you have that frustration. So no, I don't think that we should be building things instead of the church. Absolutely not. But what I do think is that the church should be more proactive about how to build financially aware and stable individuals.
Yeah.
For me, one of the criteria that I look at when searching for a church is their level of community outreach, because I believe that a church is supposed to be a resource, right? Not just for us to attain spiritual gifts, but to be able to navigate through life fully. And so when this person asked the question and states within that question that black churches don't empower community with tools for financial success, I can't agree, because I don't want to state that for all churches, and to say that all churches are like that, right?
Yeah.
And I particularly go to a church that is very intentional about making sure that not only the folks in the church have what they need, but that folks in the surrounding community have what they need to live life as well. But I do think that the Black church specifically was a place, particularly years ago, a place where people were able to understand life spiritually. They were able to understand life politically and financially. It was a place where you can succeed in all of those areas. And so what we see a lot today in churches is churches talking about prosperity, which has turned a lot of folks away.
Right.
It's talking about prosperity, is that God is going to bless you. God is going to do this. But the question is, thank you, I'm glad that God is going to bless me. But when he does, how will I be able to maintain that blessing, right? Not just for me to be a blessing to myself or to be a blessing to the church, but for me to be able to be a blessing to others as well, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would just totally just jump on that, both Josh and Swanks. Totally want to, lift up what you mentioned, Swanks, in terms of just the historic role of the Black church in being what C. Eric Lincoln calls the central institutional hub of the Black community. So the church was the hub for all of those things, for our political life, our cultural life, for our economic life, and for our spiritual life. And so, so historically, the church has done that, it has done that in our communities. But for one reason or another, there are multiple reasons. You see that either there have become these extremes where either money is talked about in the prosperity ways, as you alluded to, but is only narrowly focused on kind of church finances, or it's just not talked about at all. I would disagree with that. The notion that Black churches don't empower, I don't want to make that generalization. I assume a part of a church that does have pretty good stewardship understandings. And that's where I want to go with my response to this is that, again, kind of to your point, Swanks, that one of the things that I have to, that for our Black churches who are not empowering the community with tools for financial success, because a lot of them are, but for those who don't, I think one of the reasons is sometimes we can have a limited understanding of stewardship.
Yes.
And so sometimes we can just think about stewardship in the sense of giving to God, giving to the church, right, of the tithe of the offering, but without looking at the holistic picture of what stewardship is. And so it's not just, and you can look at this from Old Testament and New Testament, that that the tithe was not just, the tithe itself, but it was a part of how we were to order our priorities financially, so that we gave to God first, and that helped us to order the rest of our money. So it helped to order our own finances for our own lives. It helped us to order the rest of our money to, take care of bills, to take care of family, take care of friends, and then to help to care for the poor. So I think sometimes we can have a very limited understanding of stewardship that will lead us away from empowering the community. But the tools are there, and a lot of Black churches are doing them. So I think it's just a matter of kind of widening the perspective on stewardship for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you say that about widening it, I think a lot of churches understand that there is work that needs to be done, and that faith without works is dead. But the key thing to remember is that it has to be the right work. It can't be, if you're living in Miami, you're not going to do a coat drive and say you did work. That doesn't make sense. And so there has to be aligned with the issues of the community, and not just something that churches normally do. But that's when it comes to the leadership of the church. Needs to really be embedded in the community to understand its real struggles. So this is a community that lacks financial education. So let's do something around financial education, and not just in-house pick something because we have a hookup with someone who works at the supermarket. So we're just going to go ahead and just try to do like a food drive and because that's something that's cute and nice to do. But no, where's the research that's being done in your community to then come back to the church and say, we have been noticing these issues, and because this is prevalent in our community, then we are going to find a way to assist in that. And so it has to be work. It has to be the right work. And I think that broadening the understanding of stewardship will help people to understand that there's more to do than just what the church has always naturally done. And so I hope that, the brother or sister who raised that question, and many people who may disagree, I hope that they would use that motivation to restructure the church and kind of bring those concerns to the church, and kind of not do away with the church, because doing away with the church can only, in my personal opinion, just cause further damage. So yeah,
I think like you said, Ryan, that there has to be an understanding of what's going on in that community. I also think that there has been, so that's what the church was at one point, you know what I mean? And a lot of churches still are doing that, but there are also a lot of churches who are readily available for the community that are not, you know what I mean? And so then you have this idea of, well, I've been in 3 churches and they're not doing that. So that, I guess all of them ain't doing it. You know what I mean? And how do we get to a place where we notice something is missing in a church and figure out how we bring it to the space? You know what I mean? Like, instead of saying, well,
They
this is
don't
not
have it,
fair.
so I'm out.
Yep.
Right.
You don't got it. So, all right, we don't need to be building churches anymore. And I completely can feel where this person is coming from, you know, because there have been points where I have been very frustrated with the church, but have to come back and say, okay, what can we do to make this happen? Because it's not helpful to leave this space and leave it in the way that it is. So what can we do to change it? All right. So the second one is, I'm a strong believer in God and serious about seeking Him, but I'm dating someone who doesn't believe in God. We've been dating for about a year now, and I'm not sure if my mate supports my walk. Should I stay in the relationship or leave it?
Our first dose of relationship advice. Who's going to take it?
Well, I'll start it off. I believe it was a woman who wrote the letter, right, Joss? A woman who wrote the letter?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I think ladies first.
Of course.
So we'll start it off. You know, in a relationship, we hear a lot about the word compromise, right? And we understand that in the essence of a relationship takes compromise. But the question that I have for this young lady is, what elements of the relationship are you willing to compromise? Because in terms of your relationship with God that is growing, from what the letter is saying, that deals with the core of not only who she is, but also who she's going to be. So as she continues to grow in God, she is going to change as a person as well. So anytime you deal with elements of religion or politics, political views, gender views, etc., that deals with the core of who a person is. So with that, you would want to find someone that not only understands where you are, but has the ability to walk with you in that. So it might be okay right now that he doesn't believe in God, but down the line, it could potentially serve as a problem. So again, the question that I have for her is, you know, compromise is important, but and she's been with this guy for a year. So clearly she likes him. Clearly she feels him. There's something about him that she likes or she loves. But if he's not willing to participate in your growth area, will you be okay with that down the line? You know, because what if she wants to pray and he's not willing to do that? What if she wants to go to church more often and he's not willing to do that because of his unbelief? So again, you know, I'm not here to tell her the answer, but I am here to say it might cause issues down the road, you know? So, yeah.
Unless she's okay with that, and unless she's okay with an individual who can't step in and pray for her when, you know, during that time that she may need it. Now, the question is, should you be okay with that if you're pursuing Christ? I mean, I won't necessarily get into that, but I think that if she does care, then it really will cause a problem for sure.
Yeah, it will cause friction. And not to be churchy, but the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree?
Yeah.
And look, I've been there. I know exactly what this girl is going through. So I can speak on it. It's one thing for your homegirl or homeboy to not believe in God, right? Because in that kind of relationship, you can kind of deal with that because there's a surface level to that relationship. But when you are talking about, you know, relationship, when you are talking about being with someone romantically, there's a deeper level that you go with that person.
Intimacy, absolutely.
Yeah, another level of intimacy. So if you are not only growing in your intimacy with that person, but you were trying to grow into your intimacy with God. And in one of those relationships, your mate is not even supporting the area that you're trying to grow in, and not even believing in that area you're trying to grow in, then that can cause a problem.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're telling him to that he got to go.
No, I'm not saying that for her to let it go. That's not my point. That's not even really my place. But as like the beginning, that's why I said, relationship is about compromise, and she has to answer the question: is she willing to compromise in that part of the relationship?
Yeah.
I'd like to take it a step further, and let's say the man does believe in God, but he's not pursuing his walk at this point. Then what do you do? Because
that's even tougher one.
You know what I mean? Like you have you believe in God, you believe, we believe the same things as it relates to our faith, right? But I am growing. I am journaling. Or however this young lady is moving closer in her walk. I am, doing things daily that move me closer in my relationship with God. And I don't see those things happening for you. And she has to want there to be a change, or else she wouldn't have asked the question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think there's two sides. I think that, because I've been where you at, I've been where she at too, Lise, and it's like I've been in a relationship with a guy who was highly, religious, and that brother wasn't all together either.
Amen,
you know what I mean?
Amen.
So it's
Yeah.
Figuring out.
You got to figure it out.
Yeah, you have to
figure
figure it out, and not saying that it's even healthy to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't fully support your walk, because it's not easy. It's not an easy thing, and you gotta have somebody there supporting you, and not just like, oh yeah, that's what's up. We gonna pray before we eat. All right, cool. But really supporting your walk and you supporting theirs. That's where it's key. You know what I mean? Because you can have a person who is just as serious about their walk as you are, but if you cannot come together on the way that you all are walking, I think that's where, you know what I'm saying? I think that's where the problem is. So for me, I can't tell you, should you stay or should you go? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
It all boils down to two questions. If you stay in this relationship and nothing changes, will you stay?
What do you do? Yeah. Is it wasted time?
And if you stay in this relationship and it does change for the better or for the worse, because he can become a Christian or a Muslim or an atheist or a Hindu, he can believe in something different. So it really boils down to those two questions. But when you first posed the question, automatically I thought of this couple that I know. They run a marriage ministry, and they are not ashamed to tell their story. When they were first dating and when they were first married, the male, he did not believe at all, not one single bit. I mean, cussing and all of that. And as time progressed, his wife just stayed faithful in her walk. And he eventually came to understand and acknowledge and love. And now he's a minister, and he's a preacher, he's a teacher and a father. And the same thing that happened with him in his relationship also trickled down to his father. So we can't tell you to stay in your relationship, but there are examples out there where it has prospered and it has failed because of that. It all depends on what you are willing to put up with. How strong are you individually to accept that? But I also want to go into the word, because I do have a scripture where if you do plan to marry him, or if that's something that has already happened, 1 Corinthians 7:14 says, "For the unbelieving husband has been sanctified through his wife, and the unbelieving wife has been sanctified through her believing husband. Otherwise, your children will be unclean." That basically says, even if you do get married and you're saved and he's not saved, or he's saved and you're not saved, because you married, you get that same anointing. You get that same type of grace because of that marriage. So there's biblical principles that support or would suggest that because one of you is already okay, the other one will be okay. But it all depends on what you want to do. It all boils down to a personal preference and what you can handle.
I think for me, it's really a support question. I think it's about the support. You know what I'm saying? Like, where are you willing to not have support, and what areas are you willing to not be supported,
or for how long?
Yeah.
or for how
And for
long?
how
Yeah,
long?
yep.
How long?
I mean,
You know
and
what
some
I
of
mean?
that, some of that is evident in Grey's Anatomy with the relationship with Avery and Kepner. If anybody else watches Grey's Anatomy, I watch Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
But when they first started dating or when they got married, one of the discussions was, are you going to believe? Because Kepner was super duper religious, and she felt so bad about having premarital sex and all this other stuff. But Avery was like, I'm not down with it. I mean, and the episode and the storyline is still unfolding, but that relationship on TV alone can basically express some of the struggles that come along with this journey, because that's what it really is. It's a journey, and it's all up to you whether you stay in a race or whether you decide to run a different race with a different partner.
Well,
That's good. That's good. Those are good live letters. People keep sending them things in.
Oh yes. Oh my gosh, get us going.
Shondo.
Thanks for these dope live letters, everyone. If you have sent us a question or idea, please hit us up. We want to hear from you. So send us some questions at thelastdisciples@gmail.com. That's THEE lastdisciples@gmail.com, or message us on Facebook at The Good Life Podcast.
Gucci.
Thanks, y'all.
Yerp.
And now it's time for Heart of the Matter.
This is the heart of the matter. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Lately I've been soul searching, looking for my purpose. I believe if you believe, we can't dilute the service.
Now it's time for Heart of the Matter, which is a segment dedicated to open discussion on various topics, from religion to entertainment to everyday life. For today, our Heart of the Matter topic is slow your roll. Why do we rush purpose?
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So let's get into it. Why do we rush purpose, y'all? Meaning, why do we rush our plan here on earth?
So I think like when you go back to, being a kid and you're sitting in the classroom and you are, your teacher asks you what you want to be, and you draw that picture of that teacher, that lawyer, that doctor, whatever it is you want to be. You get this idea in your mind, and perhaps that idea changes. Maybe it's not a teacher anymore. Maybe now it's a marine biologist. Maybe it's a politician. Maybe it's a pastor, or, an educator, whatever it changes to. You still have this dream of what you're supposed to be at a certain age. I think we all do that. And when you get to that age and you're not there, it's like, all right, bro, what's the problem? Where did I go wrong? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you see your friends or people that you know, or, in your peer group seemingly already in those spaces, right? And doing those things. And it looks like you behind the 8 ball. You're not where you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes we're just rushing to be where we feel we should be.
Oh, you said it. You said it right on the head, man.
Yeah.
One of the main things I was thinking about in purpose is that a lot of times we get a glimpse about what it can be like 5-10 years from now, and then where we are now isn't quite where we're going to be, and so we try to rush our way to where we're going to be. We try to rush the process so many different ways. And I look at people who work out and people who put the time and effort in 3 to 6 months, they're going to have the body that they want. And all these other people taking all these supplements and dietary pills and all this extra junk, rushing the process. A lot of times we just want to rush to get where we think we should be. But we don't want to take the time to put the energy and effort into it.
Yeah. Everyone wants like fast satisfaction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who really wants to delay? Like, living in New York, I've never wanted to teleport so much in my life. Like, once you leave work and you don't want to get on that train, you just want to get there. You know what I mean? And I think that with anything desirable, we want it immediate. and not necessarily realizing that having it immediately will actually ruin what we are supposed to receive. And so if you can't eat raw meat,
you're right.
You can't eat raw meat or you'll be sick. And so your purpose, you're thinking, is to obtain the meat. But what's the purpose of meat if it's uncooked?
Right.
And so we have to, if we understand more about the importance of waiting, then maybe we wouldn't rush it so much, because who wants something that isn't the real deal? We want the purpose for a reason, and we want the fullness of it. And so just the desire to have that immediately, it's just like a huge player into it, but we really have to understand how much rushing the process really can hurt us.
I mean, it's something that's been done for a long time, but now it's something done even more, because we live in a microwave generation. You pop food in a microwave, it's done in a couple of minutes. You can go online, you can find anything in a couple of minutes. I mean, and now everything is the same way. People want a 750, 800 credit score in a couple of minutes. They want a husband and wife in a couple of minutes. I mean, everything that you used to be able to take the time to find, you can do it online. You can pick up a phone and do the same things you used to be able to do. And, you know, you used to go to the library to look up all of these different facts. But now you have a phone that can do that now. And it's so crazy, because everything is just in arm's reach, that we forget the process. We forget the process.
You know, I'm thinking about this movie that I watched last year by the name of Lucy. And it's about this woman who inadvertently gets injected with this serum that allows her to use 100% of her brain power, right? In the movie, it states that humans use about 2 to 5% of their brain power. But Lucy, this amazing woman, was able to use 100%. So throughout the movie, you see this woman being able to do these amazing things. Like, she's able to understand and speak different languages. And then about, 30%, she's able to do all these really cool karate moves and fight crime. And then about 90 to 100%, she's able to, stop time and teleport. It's amazing. And so as she's gaining these abilities, these bad guys are trying to get her and capture her in order to recreate the serum that was injected into her. And so she's trying to find a way before the bad guys capture her to pass along this information before she dies, because when she reaches 100%, she passes away. So she can, pass along this information to generations after her. And that movie reminds me of my life, of the Lucy effect. Like Lucy, I want to use 100% of my capacity.
Yeah.
I don't want, no rock unturned. I don't want no gift unused, but I want to be able to use my full self. Not only so I can help myself and just say how cool and wonderful I am, but to be able to, help other people. And because I look at my life that way, I want to rush and get to that 100%. I'm always thinking, okay, Jaleesa, did you graduate? Jaleesa, did you do this right? Jaleesa, did you do that right? I'm always thinking 5 steps ahead.
Right.
And if I can be honest with y'all, that has been so difficult for me, because I want to be so great, because I want to use my full self. I'm always rushing and forgetting to enjoy and appreciate the process.
I think that's been the same for me. I mean, that would be safe to say for all of us. But I think one of the issues is that we get so fixated on what we see in other people doing that we think we can do, that we just try our best. We get so anxious and anxiety takes over, and then now we're like, oh, let me do this, let me do that, let me try this, let me try that, and then we realize that none of that's working. So
because it's not for us,
basically.
Yeah. And with Facebook and social media and all these other things, what is so in front of us now than it is more than any other time is how social media has helped peer pressure go to another level, right? And so that's what we're really getting at, and that peer pressure happens for us at each level of life. Whether we're kids, Josh, you talked about those questions that we get asked, and we're looking around, seeing what other people say, and whether we're teenagers or young adults, or even when we're adults, like peer pressure is something that we have to deal with throughout life. And so when it comes to purpose, for me, a couple of things come to mind. One is that sometimes I think we don't realize that there is purpose in the waiting, that there is purpose in the process. And I think, Ron, you were kind of alluding to that. But yeah, for me, I've learned that, and that's helped me be more patient. When it comes to God just kind of leading me throughout my life, and recognizing that that there is the way that I like to think about purpose is that there is a seed, there is something that is implanted in me from the day I was born, since before I was born.
Right.
When God made me, that my life is spent unfurling and blossoming into that fruit, blossoming into that plant, blossoming into that wonderful creation. And so everything that I do, everything that I go through in life helps me to walk deeper and deeper into that field, to walk deeper and deeper into where I am, and deeper into where I'm supposed to be, and what I'm supposed to be doing, and who I'm supposed to be sharing and caring and connecting with and serving.
Right.
So for me, sometimes I think to kind of go back to the process piece, sometimes I don't think that if we don't have an understanding that is informed by faith, that puts together that everything that I am experiencing in life is a part of a bigger plan, a part of a bigger vision, a bigger understanding. Because when we do that, we'll see that even though it may be like, I had this dream to do this over here one day, and then, then I've got a dream to do this the other day. And that each of those things are helping us to go deeper and deeper into who God has called us to be and what our purpose is.
Right.
And I think with a higher perspective, then we can see that even when we think, something may have gotten us off track, we've been going deeper into the field, so that's what I think. I think there's purpose in the process, even as we talk about purpose, going on into it, and that once we realize that, then we can be a little bit more patient, because we're trusting that everything we experience is going to take us deeper and deeper into the field of our dreams.
Yeah. I saw this post that said struggle is often the most interesting part of the story. And I'm not putting struggle and the process synonymous, but they correlate highly. So many people want to skip the struggle to get to the success. You want to skip the process to get to the purpose. And like you said, it's all in there. The struggle, the process, that's what makes the purpose what it genuinely is. And I think we lose sight of the journey. We see how we're going to get there, but we don't realize that that's probably not the way it's going to happen. Right. And I'm going to be real. Like, I'll be on Instagram and I'll be looking at this person traveling, oh, this person in Dubai, or this person at a really nice restaurant. And I get so fascinated or fixated on the fact that I'm only looking at a snapshot of their reality. All I'm seeing is the one good thing that's going on, but I'm not necessarily seeing everything else outside of that. And I think that's something we got to be mindful of. Like you said, social media is the new peer pressure. If I'm seeing everybody on Instagram traveling, what am I going to want to do? Travel. If I see everybody on Instagram flying, frequent flying, doing this, doing whatever, I'm going to eventually want to do the same thing. And I think that's the same thing with purpose. We always see it, but we just rush it all the time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Eric. And it distorts our personal definitions of purpose.
Yeah.
And so because we see someone else doing it from a similar background, we therefore should be doing it. When that's not necessarily the case. I mean, we all have different purposes. And just to go into a little bit of definition of what I see as purpose, I think that everyone's purpose, quite honestly, as a Christian and a spiritual man, is to praise and worship God. And so how you do that comes in a million different ways. You don't got to be a preacher to do it. You can own a bar and do it. It doesn't really matter. But I think that's the basis of it. But how you achieve that looks in a lot of different ways. Sometimes somebody's purpose may be to struggle for 30 years because that is going to be a testimony that helps a generation. And so if you're thinking that you're supposed to be at somewhere in 10 years, but God is saying, no, I need you to be in this for 30 years. Right. Because when you come out of it, what's going to happen from it is going to bring so much glory to the kingdom and everything like that. And so when people think about purpose, they think that it has to be something beautiful and elaborate and pretty. Serving God isn't always pretty. Living out your purpose isn't always pretty. Oprah said something so powerful. She said, living out your purpose doesn't mean that you're going to be financially secure. It doesn't mean you're always going to have the money in the bank because you're living your purpose. No, because spiritual things and worldly things are always not aligned. You can live your purpose and be broke. Who said that they were always connected? They're not always connected.
Put the organ on them, Eric. Put the organ on them.
Yeah. Come on, organ. Yes. And I think, and too, Ryan, I think in listening, like to you, I think, I think that our definitions are very similar.
Yeah.
But I think that also that our purpose, eventually, like, because God created us with this purpose, it's not always going to be fun, but it will bring us joy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, and sometimes because it brings us joy personally, we make our purpose very personal. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes our purpose has to do with a lot of different people and not just us. You know what I mean? And sometimes we're going through something or we're living something out, because you didn't meet this person that I need you to meet yet. You didn't, you were not able to pour into this person, or this person was not able to, give you what I need them to give you for you to move forward. So I cannot let you move forward. You know what I mean? Like, you have to stay in this space right now because you didn't get all of what you're supposed to get, But I think we want to be at that place so bad. It's like, man, skip all that, bro. I don't need to know that person because we feel like we know best. You know what I'm saying? And it's not. It ain't always that. Sometimes you gotta wait it out. Sometimes you gotta cry it out. Sometimes you gotta pray it out. Sometimes you're gonna dance and you're gonna feel good, but it's gonna be a lot of times where you don't. And those moments, looking back on those moments are when we're able to say, yo, I lived through that. God brought me through that. I'm gonna be straight. You know what I'm saying? And I can tell you how you gonna be straight because I made it through.
Right. And listening to you, I'm thinking about some people that are forced into their purpose by whatever reason, whether it's a trauma or them fulfilling their purpose will save somebody else. I just think about those different factors that, for us, we understood the process, but some people are forced into that process who don't even understand their purpose. And I think about some people, that's why they rush, because so many people are forced into it for various reasons.
So it brings me to a question. We're talking a lot about like not rushing and what that can do. What are some of the advice you all would give to a person who has issues with rushing? Well, let me go on record saying that if your purpose is only about you, it's most likely not your purpose. Your purpose must include others. Your purpose has to be attached to helping other people and edifying other people. But to go back to my question to you all is, if I struggle with rushing my purpose, what would you all say to me?
Slow down. Like we said, slow your roll. Slow down. I like to cook, so I think about cooking. And there's so many different meals that need to be cooked fast, and then there's many others that really need to be slowly cooked. They need to take their time. And I think about food marinating. When you let the food marinate, it really gets the whole flavor. It gets everything going right. It's juicy and it's perfect. When you rush, there are a lot of errors in what you're doing because you're rushing through a lot of things that a meticulous person would take their time to make perfect. And when I think about a dream or when I think about purpose, you want to slow your roll because you don't want to put a finished product out there that isn't perfect and complete. And when you're rushing, your product is going to be imperfect. It's going to be incomplete. So why put something out there with imperfections if you rush it?
That's good. Yeah, what I would say from personal experience, because I have definitely gotten impatient and living into my own purpose at some points. But as I've gotten older, gotten wiser, I've learned the grace and the blessing of being able to slow down. What I would say just from personal experience is to that person who has challenges with rushing and being patient is to journal, whether that's, a physical journal or whether that's a online journal, but to make daily notes of your journey, because I think that does a couple of things. One, it helps you to reflect on, just how how and where you are in your purpose at any particular point. So, you can just kind of see your journey. And then the other thing is, once you start doing that enough, you'll be able to look back over, over a month or a couple months or a year and 2 years, and you'll be able to see, oh, I see that I'm deeper into my purpose. I'm deeper into my passion than where I was, and so it can help it helps to center you, as well as give you some perspective. And that's something that I found very helpful in my life. It's just the practice of journaling. So,
I would tell that person to enjoy the present. As a matter of fact, I would tell them to perfect the present.
Yeah.
To enjoy where you are right now. If you want to be maybe the CEO of a company, instead of just trying to rush to be that CEO, take the time at your present work, at your current organization, to learn everything that you need to learn in order to eventually become that CEO. So just perfect where you are. Enjoy where you are right now. Take the lessons that you need to learn now in order to succeed in the future. There's a present work to be done right now, and that is what should be the focus.
Yeah, that's good.
Put the organ on me. Put the organ on me one time.
Yeah, I think that for me, if I were to answer my own question, the advice that I would give is definitely begin to talk with people and to vent. I think venting is just so important. When you're impatient, don't let that bottle up within you, that you find yourself rushing or doing things that you shouldn't necessarily be doing, or losing focus on what Jaleesa was saying by perfecting the present. But have conversations with people you can just who has understanding of your purpose, and sharing with them, and having that rapport and that connection with that individual, and sharing that on a consistent basis, or just when you need to vent, someone to really talk to, they can just get an outside perspective of what's going on. Because sometimes when you're in the midst, it's hard to really see. It's hard to really have an understanding of all that's going on around you.
Yeah, I would add to all of you guys in saying, I think the thing that has been most helpful to me in slowing down is remembering that although purpose is about other people and helping other people, it's also very personal for you, and that your journey is not going to look like anybody else's.
Yeah, that's true.
And that there's something very specific about what you have to do. And you are not going to be where other people are, and other people are not going to be where you are, because we're all on our own, very personal and specific. It's so specific to you, the reasons why you have to go through the things that you have to go through.
That's good. That's good. Well, everybody, we're another episode down.
Glory.
Glory.
Yay. Let's go.
Episode two.
I feel that music.
All right, but before we go, we gotta end the question. What's good in your life this week? So I'll start it off tonight. The Giants won against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are 5-4 and first in NFC East. That is what's good in my life. Them New York Giants, baby.
That's not important.
Ooh, that hate in your blood ain't good.
So much shade. Yeah, for me, y'all know I'm a big Alabama football fan, and Alabama beat LSU yesterday. Roll Tide. So I'm happy.
Fournette didn't get nothing.
Yeah, you crazy. What's good in my life this week is us, the Last Disciples, the Good Life podcast. We received so much love. So shout out to everyone who has liked our Facebook page, viewed our website, followed us on Facebook and Twitter. We appreciate y'all. We're babies in the podcast game. And so the love that we receive has just been overwhelming. So shout out to everyone who has joined the movement. The best is yet to come. The Good Life podcast. Yes, sir.
Good in my life this week. I think my sister will be home later this month. I found that out. She'll be home just before Thanksgiving. Yeah. The homie gonna be home, man. That's my heart, man. I love that girl. So yeah, shout out to my sister, man. She is my heart for real. She holds me down. So she'll be home later this month, and then her and my brother, who is also the other piece of my heart, we are planning a sibling trip over Christmas. So
ain't that just straight out of a movie? Look at that.
Hey, look, we trying. We trying to.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all again for listening in. Don't forget to check us out on the web at www.lastdisciples.info. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud at www.soundcloud.com/lastdisciples. Also, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Last Disciples, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/THEE Last Disciples. Also, check us out on iTunes and rate us, and please share a review because we definitely appreciate you. All right, so we're out. Peace, y'all. See you next time.
Peace.